Hey, what's going on, guys? Godstatus here. So today I want to discuss some things that I personally would like to see come to PF, or changes that I would like to see made. These are all just kind of my opinion. I'm not really speaking for the community or anything like that, so I don't want people to get it twisted. If you guys wouldn't mind, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. It helps me out a lot and also pushes the video towards the recommended box so more people can see it. But nonetheless, let's jump right into this. The first thing that I really would like to see, and this is something that's kind of been on my mind for a while, is a pretty big overhaul to the attachments. Now, I know we had a pretty decent overhaul, not necessarily too long ago in the grand scheme of things, maybe like a year and a half ago, but it's kind of gotten stale again for me, and I think that a lot of people who are, more into the game and people who know a bit more about it probably would come to a certain level of agreement with me here, is the fact that the attachments are really just the same thing over and over. It's really whatever site you want, even though there's like 5 or 6 sites that are like the quote-unquote meta. Then there's either compensator folding grip or muzzle brake stubby grip for most guns out there. Like that's really the go-to for everything. And one thing that I really didn't like, it's not that it's been like too crazy impactful, but I didn't like when suppressors were allowed to be seen on the map. Granted, they're only if you're within like 15 studs or whatever. I personally just don't like the idea of that. Suppressors were already basically useless on most guns. I think the only gun I've ever willingly used a suppressor on was the L85 default suppressor, because it didn't change the damage range of the gun, and it wasn't like you needed that much more accuracy on the L85, so it was actually somewhat viable to use. But with most of them out there, they're just not. And when I'm discussing these attachments, I mean the ones that are completely viable to use. Like, what is the quote-unquote meta? What is the most important thing that you would need on your gun? And usually that's going to be a compensator or a muzzle brake. The other attachments just really don't do much. And I'm talking mostly auto guns here. You use something like a sniper, you could use like a flash hider, muffler, loudener, whatever. They don't really do anything. But as a whole, like the AR meta and the SMG meta is so fine-tuned into just like 4 attachments. And I'm not the biggest fan of this anymore, especially now that I would like to have other setups to use. Like, we'll take an example, and obviously this is a weird comparison to make between like Call of Duty and Phantom Forces, because obviously 2 very different games, but you take Call of Duty for an example, where using a suppressor on there is actually somewhat useful. Suppressor on there is definitely something worth doing, so you don't want to be seen on map. Granted, most of you people don't even use radar in Phantom Forces to begin with, which is just beyond me. The fact that suppressors have like no real use, in fact, they're even more detrimental than I personally think they should be. I don't think to say that, using a suppressor should have no fall off. Obviously, it very much should have downsides to it, but I feel like they're just so pushed out of the meta, or out of the game really, that nobody uses them because they're just not all that great. Take a look at things like grips. Using something like a vertical grip, I believe, is only necessarily useful for hip fire scenarios. Again, like I said earlier, you're really only going to see things that are kind of like the stubby or the folding grip, and that's on most guns. Now, I know other grips are, the one oddballs out here and there where something like an angle may be more useful and things like that, but most of the time, it's the same thing over and over again, and I think that's really what's kind of adding a stale factor to PF for me, is that there really isn't any versatility. If you go into a match against someone who, is experienced at the game, they're good at the game, they know what they're doing, using these oddball attachments just flat out puts you at a disadvantage, right? And I think that's the biggest issue, is that I would like to have the options without being punished so much, right? I would love to have those options without my gun just becoming so much more inaccurate because I'm not using a certain thing. It's not as drastic as I'm kind of making it out to be here. I would just like to see the options be there and not have to really like put yourself at a disadvantage, where you don't have to, feel like you are just not able to compete with people because you are making that attachment change. Just kind of my opinion. I feel like as far as maps, a lot of us, feel similar ways. We all would like new, good maps, blah, blah, blah. And I understand that's a very daunting task to take on, and it's not the easiest thing done ever on any game. Making a solid map that a lot of people like is very difficult. I personally, again, my opinions here, I'm not speaking for anyone, I don't like Crane Site Revamp. I feel like that map should have never been added back. Not to mention, it was just god-awful when it was in the game originally, but it's also still not that good now. And the fact that we have multiple crane sites, it's just... That's like when Desert Storm was kind of glitched for like one update, where you had Desert Storm and Block Storm, even though they were the same map at the time. It was just a bit overwhelming at times. Like, we have a lot of maps in here, and I like having the options. Honestly, I can play on most of the maps, and I do enjoy them, but having multiple crane sites is just as bad as it used to be. I honestly think one or the other should go. I would personally prefer crane site revamp, but I would love to hear your guys' opinions on the maps as a whole, because there's a lot more of you guys out there than, one of me. I would like to hear community opinions, and you guys, not everyone on my channel is as, quote unquote, into the game as I am and has such kind of drastic opinions as I do. I would like to hear from the more casual players out there how you guys feel about maps and where you think they could go. I think the map side of Phantom Forces has been struggling for a while. There's been some decent ones that have come into the game. They haven't been flat out terrible in my opinion. They haven't been just unplayable. Like, personally for me, Mirage is just unplayable. I flat out don't enjoy it, but there's also a reason that it is picked so often by the community. I had this talk with Axis Angle, one of the developers, where there's a reason that these people keep picking Mirage all the time when they see it, right? You go into a game and Mirage outvotes Metro at times, and you're like, what the hell? And you really just have to sit back and think there's a reason the community likes it. Just because you don't like it yourself, there's obviously other opinions out there, and you have to value those as well. So I'm going to touch on the topic of Mosin 8mm real quick. For those of you guys who don't know, Mosin 8mm is arguably one of the best snipers right now in the game. As an overall sniper, it has, a huge body shot range, a decent headshot range, but it doesn't one-shot headshot at all ranges, so that's kind of where the fallback is. And they are discussing nerfing the Mosin 8mm. Now, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, so please double check the test place and fact check me on this, the Mosin 8mm was having its headshot and its body shot range nerfed, I believe, or it was, at least the body shot range is definitely being nerfed, which I agree with. I do agree that the body shot range may be a bit much, but I also had suggested in the content creator chat, and I'm not going to go into any of that because I'm really not allowed to, but this is my opinion here, so I'm going to talk about it. I suggested removing the 8mm and extended mag combo. I personally feel like that's where the Mosin becomes even more annoying than it needs to be. We have things like the M107, which are going to one-shot at like all ranges and have, an extended mag for 10 bullets, whatever. It's an annoying gun. It has a lot of recoil. It doesn't shoot as fast. It's a little bit more underwhelming than the Mosin is. Mosin, you can play super aggressive and you have that body shot. I just don't think that extended mag on the Mosin should also be there. That's kind of where I would personally like to see the nerf go. A little bit of body shot range get nerfed, so you're not able to one-shot at a crazy range. Just nerf that down a little bit, and then make it so the extended mag is in the same category as the 8mm, where you either have to choose the extended mag or you have to choose 8mm. Because the Mosin has always been a solid sniper without 8mm, right? You can always one-shot headshot. It had a good firing rate, everything like that. I was happy when we were just getting the extended mag. But 8mm makes it way too powerful. I fully agree that it does need to be tweaked. It's so bad. It's like a fully aggressive BFG at this point. It's a little busted. We need to tweak it around, and I'm happy that they're doing that. Overall, I just don't see the point of having an extended mag stay as an option with 8mm. It was kind of like the issue with the AA-12 that we complained about, and it did get changed, which I'm happy for. So I always talk about shotguns being overpowered. Most of the time, that's me saying that they're annoying to play against, truthfully, but like the shotguns, the AA-12, where it had the 20-round drum, and you could have flechette, or you could have birdshot, and like 20 round with ammo type was just a little too powerful for that gun. It got changed. The AA-12 is nowhere near as powerful as it used to be. It's just annoying close range having someone holding left click with a fully auto shotgun, far from being overpowered, and I think that's the same route that the Mosin needs to take. Just a quick video kind of expressing some thoughts here. If you guys would, I would really appreciate seeing some of your opinions in the comments and having a decent discussion about it. But I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day, staying safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.